I'm Rob Free. I'm the new Respiratory BRU informatics manager. I've only been in the job for a month, but I was heavily involved in some of the BRISSKit work in my previous job. So I've got a good understanding of how all the BRISSKit components fit together, and I'd like to talk about how we're going to use these and our plan within respiratory as to how we're going to use them. So I should probably give you a little bit of background first. The Respiratory BRU is a new BRU which was funded in March 2000, from the beginning of March 2012. It's a research partnership between the NHS and the University of Leicester, and it's funded for 5 years. The area of priority to look into is respiratory disease, and the aim of the BRU is to promote the development of new and effective therapies for the treatment of severe asthma and chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, or COPD. So informatics is a very important part in the Respiratory BRU, and at the moment there isn't very much in the way of integration between the systems, and we wanted to come up with a strategy which would mean that we could use BRISSKit, because I'm so aware of the potential for using BRISSKit, but also being able to bring in other resources within the hospital and the university. So we've come up with this strategy. We wanted to create an integrated system with multiple components. A number of those will be BRISSKit, as I'll describe later on. And I'm personally very keen on open source tools. The BRISSKit toolkit is open source, so it kind of makes sense. And rather than use a single tool for a number of roles, it makes more sense to use individual tools for specific roles within our plan and then integrate them together. We're very open to collaborating with the other BRUs and BRISSKit as well. If we develop something that would be useful to BRISSKit, we'd be quite happy to kind of pass that back to BRISSKit, and we'd hope also that the BRUs would also not reinvent the wheel, as it were, and would work with us on particular things. And it's not always going to be possible, of course. I mean, there's different strategies within the different BRUs. We're also keen on collecting data for multiple uses as well as research, because a lot of the data collected in clinic is also applicable for research purposes. So it makes sense to only collect that data once rather than have it in multiple places. And we also want to work with the end users to provide tools that they're actually going to use and they're going to be happy using, rather than imposing something upon them. We want to try and develop or modify it in a way that means that it's useful to them. And we're also looking to develop beyond the BRU and look for additional funding opportunities with external groups where we can do something interesting with the data, with our data and their data. So this is our overall plan. This is a preliminary plan, and it's not impossible it may change in the future, but for the moment we've got a number of components in the plan. So on the hospital side, we've got the clinical research tool, and we've got a number of databases that feed into this. And then we've got what may look familiar, components from BRISSKit, which are more for the research side. So the data from the clinical research tool will feed into the research components. And then we've also got components for recruitment of participants in studies. And the whole idea is to try and make this an integrated whole. So you'll see that 4 of these, I mean, it's not fully sure whether REDCap is going to be included in the BRISSKit pack, but I mean, work's already been done on it. This is a research data capture system, so it's a bit like Onyx. We want to focus on these 3 main ones to start with. So we're really looking at collecting the data rather than mining it at the moment. This bespoke tool is something that we're developing in-house. It has a key aim, which is really identified here. It's an airways disease database, so specifically for respiratory airways disease. We want to collect key phenotype data and import data from hospital systems at the point of entry of that data. And we also want to collect data not only for research purposes, but also for the clinical process. And we also want to deal with consent at that point, rather than the BRISSKit model, which is to deal with it in a separate, in the participant system. We would like to deal with it at this point, and then data from that will feed into the I2B2 data mining system. As I said, the BRU's main priority is to look at severe asthma and COPD. So at the moment we're trying to map the processes that are involved in dealing with severe asthma and COPD. We want to get user feedback, and we're also doing some prototyping at the moment. So this is an example of a process map. You can't really see that very well at all, but unfortunately it hasn't come out very well. But we've got here at the top the patient being entered, whether they've got severe asthma, and then various flows that come down. And it's this point here where we deal with the consent issue. And at that point, if someone says they're happy to take part in research, then the information flows into the research components of the system. And on the right, the components up there, those are dealing with hospital data that's being transferred into the clinical system, which would then feed into the research system. So it's about creating something that allows all that data to be managed in a cohesive way. And this is an example of a prototyping. I'm prototyping this process in the form of forms and designs for the individuals who will be using it. So the rationale behind this is that we want to get a comprehensive data set for respiratory disease. And we want to use that data not only for research, but potentially for other uses, such as auditing within clinical practice. We feel that this larger population for cohorting analysis allows you to look for cohorts that are not already involved in research studies, and it could also provide some interesting analytical insights. By integrating key hospital systems into this process, we should reduce the errors and the time taken to enter that data. It seems needless to re-enter data where it's already available in systems. And crucially, we think that using BRISSKit components is a really good way to go, because it will reduce the development time and the effort spent, and it will also provide numbers of collaboration opportunities, not just within BRISSKit, but between the BRUs and potentially other groups as well. And talking of collaboration, these are just a few ideas that I came up with where these could be useful things for a lot of people, I think. And they're ideas that we want to look at going forward with BRISSKit. Things like hospital patient lookups, a generic patient lookup, which could be modified for a particular trust. And we're also looking at using CiviCRM potentially across the 3 Leicester BRUs, but we would probably want different views for the different sites. So we wanted to look at that kind of thing. And then we also want to refine the kind of the workflow that's involved, because it's a little bit clunky at the moment. And then there's also the question of integrating REDCap data into I2B2 and CiviCRM. And down the road, we also want to bring the data from the clinical research tool into I2B2 and integrate that with other data such as genomics data. So we're just starting out, and we haven't really developed a huge amount yet. We've got a good understanding of what we want to do, and we hope that BRISSKit is going to be the kind of platform on which we can build that. So I'd just like to thank Dr. Gilbert Voltman. He's the respiratory clinical lead. He's been working on the process mapping and the overall strategy. Nick Holden, who I've been sharing an office with, has been quite a lot of help. getting me settled in. The BRISSKit team, I've probably been helping them more than they've been helping me, but and of course the NIHR who are funding my post. Thank you very much.
Okay, does anybody have any questions for Rob at this stage?
So over the next couple of days, we're going to be doing some hack projects. So we want to demonstrate proactively that BRISSKit has got an open API, and we want development of BRISSKit to be a community-led project. That's why we're having the hack day. And I'll go through the list of projects we have. One of them is your idea, and it's about RedCap. Do you want to tell us about that? Okay.
Well, at the moment, RedCap, I think some work has been done on integrating RedCap with ITB2, but certainly not with CiviCRM at the moment. So that's something that we'd potentially like to look into.
So why RedCap? What is RedCap?
I think it's a very nice user interface. To be honest, at the moment we haven't actually chosen exactly which data capture software we're going to use. I mean, but I personally really like RedCap, and I think it's.
Can you just tell us what RedCap is?
It's a research data capture tool. It's a bit like Onyx. It just seems more streamlined than Onyx and easier to operate. But
does it have a community already?
Yes. So it's. I believe it's one of the issues as to why it's not part of BRISSKit is that it's not open source, but it is freely available. But you have to join the RedCap consortium in order to use it. And any changes that you make to it will then have to be returned back to the consortium, or it's something along those lines. So
you have to take, as a research unit, you'd have to take out your own license.
I think we're okay as a university taking a license, because I think it's under the university's name rather than the research unit. I'm not completely sure, but we need to double check that. But yeah.
Yeah, but that's okay. I mean, so that's an example of a hack and integration, if you like, of BRISSKit with a proprietary tool.
Yeah.
Which is the kind of thing we want to encourage.